Cool.
So just to start off, I thought it'd be really nice if you could just give me the real brief rundown of how you see what GapFiller does and how it sort of impacts the communities that you work with, if that would be all right.
Yep. It's pretty broad and a pretty broad practice,
just
like
but just a general comment just for my teammates that are not quite sure of what you guys do.
So GapFiller started up after a series of earthquakes here in Christchurch, and I guess if I jump right to the notion of urban acupuncture, I guess we were just a group of friends who wanted to do something. We had no legal standing, no funding, no power, no anything. And I guess that's for a lot of GapFiller's existence, that was the position and perspective from which we were trying to instigate change in the city. It's actually, we own nothing. We've got nothing. We're begging, borrowing, stealing, locating things, kind of using a lot of guerrilla tactics and things like that, or just borrowing bits of land from landowners and things like that. So it became an interesting practice, this notion of how to instigate social change or even change in the built form of a place coming from a position of no power or authority. So I guess that might have something in common with that acupuncture notion, the idea of just making small actions, doing it off your own back, kind of, So for the first several years of our existence, we were entirely philanthropically funded. So we got some grant funding, we had donations from people, a lot of specific post-earthquake funding and things. So what started as a group of friends doing some projects ended up forming a charitable trust, a not-for-profit organization. And we carried on that way a long time. So we started to gain, when you get some funding from the local government or something, then you start to gain a little bit more legitimacy or power or something like that. And over the last several years, it evolved into a social enterprise. So now we do a lot of consulting work on property developments. About 80 or 85% of our income is from getting contracted by developers or development agencies or local governments to work on projects. Which again, I don't think I guess the way instinctively, the way I interpret urban acupuncture, because it could happen on all sorts of levels or scales if you just take the term as it is. A shopping mall, would be a unfathomably enormous project from my perspective, could be an urban acupuncture tool in the context of building a whole new city or suburb or something like that. So it just depends kind of the scale you're looking at. So we started from a perspective of, looking at central Christchurch and making really tiny little community-oriented and community-led interventions to try to change the sense of identity and what's possible in the place. And that's grown a bit. Now we're, part of, master planning teams going in and thinking about placemaking and community engagement and how to make the much larger than what we used to be thinking about, but still small in the terms of an overall city. So the development of a new public theater building in the city or something like that, and how to make it be a bit more community minded and link in with the existing community and values and aspirations a bit more.
Yeah, so definitely I definitely noticed when looking at the research and the projects and sort of the information you guys have on your websites and other things, that this idea of really engaging and activating the community is a really important aspect of sort of what your sort of ideals are with your projects. You're really wanting to make sure the community has a sort of value and a care in those projects. How have you found to be the best ways to really, I guess, connect with the community and engage them? Is it just through like knowing people, or do you talk to other groups?
Yeah, I'd say we're kind of freed up in a way because we don't have that any official standing behind what we do, because we're not the council or an official agency. We get to work in quite different ways. So if councils are, doing a new public development, they have a kind of statutory responsibility to engage with and represent everyone, all constituents in the area. And that's often not very energizing to take part in really broad consultation exercises like that. We're quite fortunate and can work quite well alongside that in a way that we can sort of handpick who we engage with, and very often we get really high levels of participation by working closely with one or two selected kind of communities of interest for a certain project. And so we might develop a project with a cycle advocacy group and a film club, or 3 dance clubs in the city, and so you get really high levels of buy-in and participation and aligned values, because you're developing a project, with these people who are coming from a certain value perspective or something. And then the trick is, rather than try to represent everyone's views in one single project, when you do the kind of smaller scale projects, the idea is over the course of 100 and however many projects we've done, that you don't work with the same groups over and over again. So you do one project with those 3 groups, and the next one with those 3, and the next one with, and over time, then the sum total is you've engaged a lot of people and kind of empowered and made more proactive.
Because I watched your lecture at Deakin University from a wee while ago. It's on YouTube, and I remember you mentioning that about
the arts participation thing.
Site-specific participatory art. From 5 years ago. It's on YouTube.
No recollection of what I said there, but cool. Okay.
It was really interesting. It was about how tailoring the projects to the site and sort of vice versa, and how you're talking about your restrictions that you put on yourself with your projects, like not just repeating the same ideas over and over. And so I guess with that sort of restriction, and you're trying to create new projects and new ideas and new community groups, where does that sort of start each time? Are you finding that as you've gotten bigger, people come to you as a community group who want to have it in a sort of project in their area, or is it coming from a research-based system? Do you go looking for ideas? I just want to get a little bit of an idea of where that sort of whole ideation process starts.
All of the above. There's the formula is there is no formula. I think. We're getting better at kind of refining our processes of project development, but as far as where the original,
it really depends.
We're still heavily opportunistic. Where does the money come from is always going to be one of the number one questions. Who's got the land or the site or the location for the project is always a really defining factor as well. So if there's no money and no site, every good idea will just get parked on the list until there is. But then it's just a constant process of being opportunistic. So remembering the groups we're connected with, the possible resources that we're connected with, and waiting for the right moment, as it were.
So it's just bringing all the pieces together when it makes sense, I guess, in a way.
And I mean, we're I guess quite deliberate about that. So there's actually a workshop that I've ended up running quite a lot. That can be quite a quick thing with communities as well. Is sort of doing analyzing the context, and that could be as a specific site in a town or city, or the kind of city as a whole, and getting a sense of where it's at, what's missing, what's in the wind, as it were, what people are yearning for, or frightened of, or whatever it might be. And then so that becomes one list of all sorts of observations about how the place could be improved, or what things we think could be needed here. A sort of second list of resources. Funding is a really obvious one, but resources could be materials, recycled things. It could be someone that just moved to town who's a welder and gets in touch and says, oh, I'd like to be involved in something. So there might be an idea that you've been sitting there and going, oh, it'd be great to do that, but it'd be too expensive. And then suddenly, someone that can make it cost half as much because of a particular skill they have, or whatever. And then the kind of the creative ideas themselves, and the champions for them, I guess. Like, you could do a really rational analysis of what is the best project that we could do in this place. But if you come to an answer that doesn't excite anyone, it's never going to work. So we always think about the sort of who might be a champion for an idea, and then effectively that's the formula for the opportunism. So, okay, what are we responding to in the city? What's the context? What are the issues that we might engage with? What resources do we have or potentially have? And what are the kind of creative ideas and people who might partner on that, or champion that? And if you find, it's a game of match. If you can find the right project with the right people to address the right thing, then that's the right time. Yeah.